So again, today we're going to have an introduction to Python. So before we begin, has anyone heard of Python, used Python, know anything about it? Just feel free to unmute. It can be very basic knowledge. And if you guys want a hint, it is a language of code. All right, if we don't know, that's perfectly fine. So again, Python is a coding language, and it has many uses, right? It can be used to calculate simple mathematical equations. It can also be used to make iPhone games, websites, and also it's how some computers are run. And again, that's not it. That list goes on and on. So similar to Scratch, the purpose of Python is to talk to the computer and to tell it to carry out an action. However, in Scratch, we used blocks, which we would drag across the screen, but this did get a little bit confusing since we were unfamiliar with all the blocks, right? So unlike Scratch, we type out text, which is awesome. Okay, so I'm now going to show an example of code done with Python. So, all right, we're going to go through it together, and basically, on the left is the code that they wrote, which I know seems like a little bit scary right now, but right now we're just going to focus on what's happening in the right. All right, so if I click Run Code, all right, they're asking us a story, so I'm going to read it out loud. You awaken the next morning in a thick, dank forest, head spinning and fighting the urge to vomit. You stand and marvel at your new, unfamiliar setting. The peace quickly fades when you hear a grotesque sound emitting behind you. A slobbering orc is running towards you. You will A, grab a nearby rock and throw it at the orc, B, lie down and wait to be mauled, or C, run. Alright, so it's basically telling us a story, and there's this big, unfamiliar, scary monster running at us, and what should we do? So I think I'm going to put in C, which is for run. So you run as quickly as possible, but the orc's speed is too great. You will A, hide behind a boulder, B, trapped, so you will fight, C, run towards an abandoned town. I'm going to fight the orc. You find 3 rocks on the ground and decide to chuck them at the orc. Even if one of them miss, you will die. Each rock has a 20% chance of missing. Your rock missed and the orc kills you. Oh, okay. So that was interesting, and that was like a story. And again, it was using Python. Awesome. All right. So today we will be using this link, bit.ly/py_.com, to type in our Python. So do you think you guys could all take a second just to open this? I can put it in the chat, but I'm not sure. All right. Awesome. So, all right, I want you guys' attention back on the slides because I know this new website that I've just taken you guys to looks a little bit intimidating. So basically, what you see highlighted in yellow is where you write the code. And then what you see highlighted in green is what the computer does. It's the results, right? So you'll tell it to do something up here, and then the computer will carry out its function on the bottom. But similar to Scratch, before the computer can carry out its function, it has to be initiated, right? So in the top, which is highlighted in red, there's a run button. And once you click the run button, the computer program will carry out the function, or carry out whatever you told it to. So again, just a brief rundown. In the top box, highlighted in yellow, that's where you're going to type the code. And you click run, which is that little green button at the top, and then the code will be shown at the bottom. Awesome. So in Python, again, unlike Scratch, we actually have to type out what we want the computer to do. And what we want them to do is kind of set up into these nice little terms. Today, we're mainly going to be focusing on the word print, which will tell the computer or tell the code to say something, right? So if we were to use the word print, and then we can add quotation marks to what we want to print, that will indicate what is printed. If we were to say print, parentheses, quotation marks, hello world, this is kind of what would show up. So again, in order to write something, we use the word print and add quotation marks to indicate what is printed. All right, do we kind of understand what this code does? All right, and so again, you want to type out the command print, always include parentheses, and then quotation marks. All right, now with the link that I provided you guys, I would like you guys to try printing hello world. So remember, type in the command print, parentheses, and quotation marks. And then make sure you also click the run button so your program actually carries out. So maybe take 30 seconds and type this command. And give me a thumbs up if it worked. If you see my screen here, this is what the code should look like. You might have put in some, I'm not really sure what you meant, but you might have forgotten the parentheses. Here, I'll show you. Basically, is this what you did?
Where except on the bottom it says program finished with exit.
Oh yeah.
0. Press enter to exit console.
That's fine. You just kind of ignore that. That just means that the program finished. No worries about that. And then Connor, are you with us? Were you able to print hello world?
Yeah, but I think so. But it says program finished.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
To press enter to exit console.
Yeah, that's perfectly fine. That just means that the program's finished. Okay, so printing is a very useful feature in Python, but there are some shortcuts. So for example, if we would like to print something out multiple times, but don't feel like writing the same thing, we can use variables, which you guys may remember from Scratch. Alright, so here we can see that we set a variable named hello equal to quotation marks hello world. And then all we have to do is tell the computer to print the variable hello. And it will do the same thing as if we just said print parentheses hello world, you know? Alright, does that kind of make sense? So we set this variable equal to this phrase, and the computer just substitutes this phrase wherever we put the variable. Alright, awesome. So again, what is a variable? A variable is a container for information, and it is created as soon as the value is assigned. So as soon as you put that equal sign, the variable knows what its value is. And also, a variable can be a number, words, or a true or false. And then the purpose of a variable is to reuse information over and over again, right? If we want to say hello world several times but don't feel like typing it out, that's where we can just substitute a variable. And again, really important, a variable can be a number, words, or a true or false statement. Alright, so then how do we make a variable? For starters, each variable has to have a unique name. It can be like X, or it can be a name, or it doesn't really matter, but it just has to be unique. There can't be two of the same variable name. And also what's important to keep in mind is that capitalizations make different variables. So lowercase x is different than uppercase x. And as you can see here, the text in black indicates the variable, and then what's behind or next to the equal sign indicates the value. So here, x, the x variable, is equal to 6. Here, the Mary variable is equal to the text a friend, and then the rain variable is equal to the true statement. Alright, so there's kind of a lot going on here, but just keep in mind that variables can pretty much be named anything, but also make sure you keep them one word, and that capitalizations make variables different. So since the goal is to use variables today, we have to know how to name them, right? So when naming a variable, it's helpful to name the variable that it has something to do with what you're assigning it to, right? Because if you have a bunch of random variables with random values that don't like correspond, you're going to get a little bit confused. So again, when you're naming a variable, make sure it kind of has something to do with what you're talking about or the value you're assigning it to. And then a helpful trick is to use camel case. So for example, if you were to create a variable called dog name equals Leo, it's helpful just so you know kind of where each word begins and stops, that the beginning of each word is capitalized, except for the first one. Alright, and again, kind of what this first bullet point means is that you want to know what dog name means, and dog name means Leo. So if it was like X equals Leo, it would get kind of confusing. Okay. So do you kind of understand what variables are and how to name them? Connor, would you mind unmuting and kind of explaining like what you're confused on?
Well, I don't get it, like how you can memorize or how I mean, do you just type it in like dog's name equals Leo or what?
Yeah, that's pretty much all you have to do. And the computer will know that this is the variable name, and then you can just like type this in anywhere. So you could say print dog name.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I thought if you just type dog name in before saying dog name is Leo or anything, then it would know it's Leo.
No. Each program is kind of like starts from 0. So you have to assign the values. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so the next step, we're going to apply our knowledge about variables, and let's create a variable called hello world, right? So our goal is to eventually use this variable so we can say hello world. All right, so again, the variable name is hello, and its value is hello world in quotation marks. And then I have a question for you guys. And so then, what do you guys think if we will tell the computer to print parentheses hello? What, Annika? Sorry, what?
I already tried print hello.
You already tried it? And
Yeah,
then,
I already tried it with print.
and then what happened? Did it work?
It worked.
And then did it say hello world?
Yeah.
Awesome. You guys are so ahead.
I made
Oh, 3 times, kind of like on screen. So yeah, hopefully your code looks something like this. We assign the variable in the first line, hello equals quotation marks hello world, and then print hello. Okay. So now we're just going to do like a quick activity, but kind of changing up the variable name. So create a variable for dog name equals Leo, and then remember that camel case, and then make a print statement for dog name. So hopefully what the code will do, if we kind of get it correct, it will just say Leo on the screen. Alright, so again, just try creating a variable name for dog name equals quotation marks Leo, and then make that print statement. Alright, and then when you see Leo printed up on the screen, just give me a thumbs up. But once we've created Leo, or set it on the screen, then I have another question for you guys. So if we were to have a variable with the value quotation marks cat, what do you think an appropriate name would be? So for example, the past value was Leo, and the variable's name was dog name. So if the value is cat, what do you think a good name would be for the variable?
Just change it to cat name.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that would work. Or like other options are animal type, or animal or pet, and cat name. Yeah, that works too. Sorry, what? Didn't work? Okay. Here, I will put it. I'm pretty sure it just should have went something like this. Dog name equals Leo. Make sure you put it in quotation marks, or else it won't print. And then print parentheses dog name. Oh. And then when you click, make sure you click run. And then at the bottom of the screen, if you guys can see that, it says Leo. So Leo, maybe just really quick check that you have these 2 lines of code, and it looks something like that. Alright, got it? Amazing. Alright, and then remember, when creating a variable, you pick a name, make the variable, and then print it. Awesome. So do you think you guys have like a pretty good understanding? You know how to create a variable and print the value? Do you guys think? Awesome. All right, so we're going to move on to our next activity, which you guys will be able to independently create a story. Awesome. And then our objective is that we will be able to use variables and print statements to write a story. And all you'll need for this is your computer and your brain. Okay.
The problem I have is no matter how many times I say to print animal type, it always goes, when I print it, it only says it 2 times.
No matter like how many times you put.
Like even if I put it even if I type print animal type 4 times, when I press run, it prints only 2 times.
That's really strange. I don't know what that is. Oh boy. Okay. I think it's okay for now. Just yeah, I really don't know what that is. Sorry about that. Alright, but you guys will have 5 minutes to write a story and find a way to print it. Alright, so kind of similar to like the interesting story that we read in the beginning of the workshop, you guys will be able to create your own. Alright, so 5 minutes on the clock. Now you guys can create your own stories, and then we'll hopefully share them once the 5 minutes is up. And again, try to use at least one variable. So now I'd like us to share the stories that we've created with each other. So on your Python code, you can click share, and then you can share this link in the chat. Also, wait, you might need to click save. Can you guys just try sharing and let me know if it... Yeah, okay, could someone try sharing, and then I'll let you know if the link works. So, okay. The lion wanted to eat a rabbit. The rabbit had a plan not to be eaten. She had a plan to trick the lion. She came late. The lion asked her why she came late, and she said she tried to escape another lion. The lion looked inside a deep well and saw another lion. He jumped inside and died. Alright, nice story. What's the title?
The rabbit and the lion.
Alright, nice. But before we move on to our break, I want to discuss with you guys, what is a variable used for? Someone just like to unmute.
It's used to make things like faster to type it all up. It's fast.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Variables are very helpful in shortening your code, right? And they can also help if you have a lot of values that depend on like one number and you want to change that number. Instead of having to go through each individual line, if you have a variable, you just change one value and the rest change. All right. And then Leia, if you're still with us. Okay, awesome. So our next activity, as shown on the screen, is math in Python. In other words, we're going to teach computers how to do our math homework. I'm kidding. Okay, so the objective is that students will learn how to make a computer do math in Python. And obviously, all you need is your computer. So pretty much, we can make computers do math for us. If we were to do some really complicated equation like 788 times 91 times 2,647, right? It's going to take us a while to just do it by hand and use our handy-dandy multiplication table. So pretty much, if we tell a computer or a calculator to do this, which is actually a type of computer, it's going to save us a lot of time. So before we move on to creating these equations and using actually Python, let's review PEMDAS. We're going to have a quick math lesson. So has anyone heard of...
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. I remember learning it.
P is parentheses. P is something that my teacher says not for all. That M is multiplication. D is division. A is addition. S is...
Wow, you just led us through the lesson. Awesome, yeah. So PEMDAS, again, is the order of operations, or if you have a super complicated math equation with a bunch of different addition and multiplication and subtraction, division signs, this is the order in which you carry it out, right? You do parentheses first, then exponents, then multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, which is summarized in the acronym PEMDAS. Awesome. And so our next activity will be working with numbers. So as we can see here, we have Python printing out numbers. And here, as you can see, there is no quotation marks, and that's going to mean something. So we have print 3, and that just creates the value when the program is run of 3. But when we say print 3 plus 19, the program says 22. So unlike words, it doesn't say exactly what we tell it to. It kind of does that extra step on its own. It's so ambitious, right? So as you can see here, when we say print 3 minus 19, it says negative 16. When we say print 3 plus 19 times 2, it has 41. And when we say print parentheses 3 plus 19 times 2, it says 44. All right, so as we can see, Python is doing the math for us. And if you guys wonder why, it's because we didn't put those quotation marks. If we put quotation marks, it would actually just display the numbers, but it knows that it's supposed to be solving that math for us. Okay, so I would like you guys to go back to the link that I gave you at the start of class or start of the workshop and practice typing in these numbers. So you can start by saying print parentheses 3 and then move your way up and just check to see if the values that you get are the same as the values shown on screen. So maybe take 30 seconds to just type in these values. Okay, so once you've just typed out a few of these, the next step is to try out some random numbers. So I'd like you guys to take your program and just type in any numbers that you would like. And then, once you print those, you can also try printing the sum and the difference. Right, so if we go to our program, we don't have to set any variables for now. We can just say print, I'm just going to do 9, print. Alright, so this is all we're doing for now. We're just testing out to see how Python does our math. So once you've played around with this a little bit, just give me a thumbs up. Alright, and then I want you guys to all try doing parentheses 3 plus 19 times 2 and 3 plus 19 times 2 and try telling me the difference. And if you want, you can apply your past knowledge of PEMDAS. But for now, we can just type it immediately into our code. If you want, I can do it with you guys.
This is 3,297 for without parentheses. And then
1,000? Are you sure?
yeah.
Wow. I see that. And then 3 plus 19 is 41, and then the other one is 44.
Yeah, exactly, because Connor, I'm not really sure you got 3,000, but that's okay. In this one, it's just like this is basic PEMDAS, right? You multiply first, and then you get 19 times 2, which is 38, and then add 3 to that. And then in this one, you do 3 plus 19 first, which is 21 times 2, which is 44. But again, this isn't a math lesson. We're just kind of experimenting with Python. Okay, so now, just because, let's try throwing in some variables. At the top of your code, try setting number values to 2 variables. We can just use x and y. And then try doing the same thing as before. But instead, you can say print parentheses x plus y, or x minus y, or x times y plus x, or something like that. So again, what we're doing, I'll just do it on screen just to help you guys. X equals 7 and y equals 8. And then let's experiment with some equations. Yeah, awesome. And then maybe take like another 25 seconds to experiment, and then let me know if it has the same or different results as just plainly typing in print 7 plus 8. Alright, so what do you guys think? You guys can try it on your own, or you guys can look at my screen, but do you think these will have the same results? The first lines 5 and 6 versus lines 7 and 8. What do you guys think? Annika?
I think they all have the same results.
Yeah, exactly. They will have the same code. Because basically all the computer is doing is just substituting wherever it sees the variable for the variable's value, right? So if x equals 7 and y equals 8, wherever there's an x variable, the computer is just going to substitute it. So they end up being the same, just like Annika said. Awesome. And again, here's just kind of what we did, but in a slide. All right, so our next activity, which I think is really cool, is we are going to make a calculator. So how do we do this? Just like when you type numbers into a calculator, we need to know which numbers we're using. And the calculator doesn't make up numbers and do them for fun, like we just did. The calculator depends on the user, right? If I have my calculator right here, whatever code is going on back here, it's programmed to use what I tell it to, if that makes sense. So in other words, the user types in numbers, which the calculator will use. The calculator doesn't type up its own numbers for fun. It depends on the input of the user, which leads us to our next topic of input. So basically, the input variable, which is kind of similar to like the print function, but it's a little different, but we'll get into that. So the input lets us assign something from the user into a variable, right? We can ask the user to give us some information, and then because of input, we can use it. Awesome. So also, by using input, we tell the computer that we're trying to take information, and then we use it to produce output. So for example, here, I know this code looks a little bit complicated, but I'm going to break it down. So we have name, which is the variable. We just called the variable name, equals input, parentheses, quotation mark, what's your name? All right, so what does this mean? When the computer sees these quotation marks in the phrase inside, it's going to just ask that question. It's like putting the print. The computer is going to ask, what's your name? And then it's also going to take the input, right? And with the input, when the computer sees input, what it does is ask the user to type their answer. So when we print that variable, that name, again, it's going to ask the question and then take the input. And then what it's going to do is print whatever the person said. Okay, so I know this is a lot, so can you guys let me know what's kind of confusing or what I should go over? You guys kind of understand what input is, and do you think you could use it?
Wait, input is it asks you, right?
Yeah, the computer is asking the user for their input.
That's what input means, right?
Yeah. And again,
okay, I got it.
Awesome. So in this screenshot of the code, we made a variable that asks for the input, and then what we did is we printed that variable. So we're printing the input to this equation, or to this question. Okay. And again, what's circled here is the user input. So this code asked, what's your name? The user typed in STEMpower, and then the code, because of what we told it to do, is just going to repeat the name. Okay, so let's try it out. So I'd like you guys to just copy this code and try to understand what it's saying. It's asking for the variable name equals input, parentheses, quotation marks, enter your name here, and then the code is going to print hi there plus the person's name. All right. So while
it's gonna ask you enter your name here, and then you enter your name, right?
Yeah, and then the code is gonna say hi there, and then repeat your name using that input function. Because we can apply our knowledge of variables, and it's going to print this phrase, and then adds this variable. It's gonna add the input. It's crazy. It's kind of like going in a full circle from we're applying our knowledge from variables and now input. Awesome. So when you guys are done kind of copying this code, just give me a thumbs up and we'll go over kind of what happened. Okay. So what happened? If you click the go button, this is what is going to be shown. All right. So the code is going to ask enter your name here. Then you type your name. And then the code just repeats, hi there, Alex, or whatever the name the user put. So everyone just try on their code really quick, click the run button and see if a similar, something similar like this pops up. Basically what we did, again, we made a variable called name, and this helps because we can just copy it in later. And that name is the input to this question. So I'm going to ask you guys to create a new code soon, which is going to have to do with asking them their age. So just make sure that you realize, why did we put a variable there? And the answer is that we put a variable so that we can use the user input. All right, so Connor, maybe take a few more seconds and then we're going to move on to the next activity. All right. So I would like you guys to ask the user for their age and then say your name is plus their age. And so a helpful thing, you can make a variable called age equals input parentheses, what is your age? And then you can print out age, or like your age is, if that makes any sense. But then let's try to keep this brief because we still need to make the calculator, which hopefully we will have enough time for. So again, we're creating that variable and setting the value to the input, so whatever the user tells, whatever their answer is, and then we're going to print your age is and plus the input. Awesome. And then once you run that code, it should look a little bit like this. Enter your age, you tell them your age, and then they just repeat it. Awesome. So we still have 10 minutes, so let's move on to the calculator. So the first step is to ask the user for two numbers. So if you remember how to do this, we set the variable we can say like number 1 and number 2 equals input to the questions. So take 30 seconds, put the answer on the screen. So take 30 seconds to ask the user for two numbers. All right, so hopefully your code looks a little bit like this. Oh, also, I forgot to say, make sure that you put int in front because that will just ensure that the user tells you a number and not like some letters, right? Because we're just working with simple numbers right now. So again, hopefully we're just creating two values called number 1 and two variables called number 1 and number 2. And these are integer inputs. And integer just means like number. To the question, enter number and enter another number. All right. Does that make sense? This is kind of just like a review. We've been doing it. All right, no problem. If you guys are copying from the screen, that's okay. Just make sure that you're trying your best to understand what each command means. And if you need clarification, just ask. All right. So again, we're creating a variable of the input of what the user tells us. We're going to ask them enter number and enter another number, and then we're taking their answers. Okay. Do we have the variables assigned? So this value, this is a variable, right? We've been working with variables the entire time. So we're setting this variable as the input of the user. So first, when the computer sees this, this is what it's going to do. It's going to ask for enter a number. And then it's going to take the input or the answer that the person says and assign it this variable, okay? So if the user says 1, the number 1 equals 1. And this helps because then we can use this later and create and do some operations with it. So again, these are variables, and whatever the user says, it's going to be the new value of that variable. Because our next step is to do two operations, right? All right, so here again, I've said it, I'm gonna repeat myself, but we're just creating variables that are assigned to the input that the user tells us. We're asking enter a number, they're gonna say like 3, and then 3 equals number 1, right? We're just assigning a value to a variable. Pretty simple. Okay, so we can continue copying down this code, and I really want you guys to understand kind of what you're working with. But then the next step is to do at least two operations, right? All right, so can I have a thumbs up once you're done writing down the first step? So the next step is to create equations such as sum 1 or combination 1 and combination 2. But for now, let's just stick with the sum, right? We're creating a new variable called sum1, which is equal to the value of number 1 and the value of number 2. So the user is going to tell us two numbers, let's say 1 and 2, and then this new variable is going to add those two together. right? Okay, so it's really important that you have these two lines of code, and then we can add the sum. It's not working? Alright, just make sure that you write number 1 equals int, parentheses input, parentheses quotation marks. Just make sure, copy it down. Yes? Okay. And then the next step is to print it out, which you can just do print out sum1. Alright, but again, I think this is where we are struggling. Yeah, so this is what your code should look like, but we're just going to ignore combination 1 and combination 2 for now. So only sum1 and printing it out. So once we should have around 4 lines of code. Can I get a thumbs up if it works and if it does the sum? Alright, looks like Annika's good. And then Connor and Leia, just let me know. And then if hopefully your code has worked and you'll kind of understand, I know today was we're kind of in a hurry and it was kind of a confusing concept. Yeah, all we had to do today was just to get like a very basic intro, because again, Python is some pretty advanced stuff, and it's pretty advanced stuff, and I'm really impressed that you guys got it. Yeah. So take like a few minutes. I posted this link in the chat, so if you want to fill out the feedback and reflection form, and if you're dying to know more about Python, you can just feel free to stay and I can answer some more questions. But again, it was a really pretty complicated concept, so I'm impressed that we got to where we did.